All right, are we ready to start? Please. And notice that our clocks are wrong. They haven't been adjusted yet to daylight savings, so we are not running an hour and 10 minutes late. So, all right, everyone please be seated. We're going to have a flag.
Here we do. Yeah, right there.
Oh, sorry, you were blocking it. Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting. I'm sorry, cable guys, you ready? Okay. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Newburyport Public Schools for Monday, November 2nd. Superintendent Gallagher, would you kindly call the roll?
I would love to. Mayor Holliday.
Present.
Mr. Bruce Menon.
Here.
Mr. David Hawkeiser.
Here.
Mr. Steve Cole.
Here.
Mr. Sean Reardon.
Here.
Mr. Brian Callahan.
Here.
What a lineup. Starting at.
So we have one absent. Sheila Reardon
Correct.
is
Miss.
absent today.
Correct.
We understand that she will hopefully be able to Zoom into our executive session that we will be having shortly. So will we all please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Superintendent Reardon, I'm going to ask you to say a few words for, we have lost a long-term employee of the school system, and I just wanted you to say a few
Yes.
words.
Last week, the Newburyport School Committee lost a real friend, a caring heart with the passing of Mary Grabowski. Mary passed away following a short battle with cancer, and the sadness of our entire school community is profound. Ms. Grabowski was a member of the Clipper family for over 20 years. She was a legendary bus driver who drove and made the children and staff smile each and every day with her outgoing personality and her positive outlook on life. Mary was also a Clipper herself, having graduated from Newburyport High School in 1984. Mary obtained her school bus license and started driving route number 1 for the Rupert Knock Middle School and the Bresnahan School in September of 2000. For over 20 years, she embraced our students on their way to and from school, providing them with a safe and warm start of their day and the end of their days. In addition to driving, Mary was employed as a lunchroom monitor at the Bresnahan School, and during the summer, she drove for the summer programs offered within the Newburyport Public Schools. She leaves behind her husband David and their 2 sons Jeremy and DJ, both of whom went through the Newburyport school system. On behalf of the Newburyport District, I would like to thank Mary's family for her many years of service and send our thoughts and prayers of the whole Clipper community their way. Thoughts and prayers will stay with the Grabowski family during all of these challenging times. This time I would like to take a moment of silence in remembrance of Mary Grabowski. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Gallagher. Now I'll turn it over to Mr. Menon for public comment.
We open up our session of public comment. If we, again, we would ask if, Brian, you'll announce the names?
We do not have anybody for public comment.
Well, that was a short public comment.
There was one person that they left. I guess if you want to say, or you want me to say, anybody wants to send us emails for public comment, they're welcome to sc@newburyport.k12.ma.us.
We could check in after executive session too.
That's true. And we'll check in when we come back.
We'll move to item number 3. Before we do that, I had a brief conversation with school committee member Reardon about postponing discussion on item 13 until after the governor has given some more direction about athletics. So we will postpone that discussion. Move to the consent agenda. Do we have any warrants?
Yes, we do. Four warrants, 3 warrants. I move that the following named bills and payrolls of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $15,029.72 be approved for the city auditor to make payment and deduct the funds from the school's account. There are no conflicts.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, one absent.
The next warrant, I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $28,163.35 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second?
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
One absent.
And the last warrant, I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $379,884.28 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second?
No discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? One absent. We have a voluminous set of minutes for October 5th. What is the interest of the school committee? Do we want to pass the minutes? Do we want to?
I just got them today and haven't had a chance to read the 30 pages.
I got up to page 27, so
Okay.
if we want to push it until next time, then that's fine.
Is that all right? So we just hold it?
Those are from October. Item number 4, I don't know that we're going to postpone to the next week.
Yes, just to give an update, Sierra Leahy will be our student rep, and with a soccer game getting postponed, she's actually playing right now out on the field, girls soccer team. But I'd just like to maybe give an update of the athletics. This would have been part of her report. So our golf team were league champions with a 10-0 record. Our field hockey team right now is 7-1 in first place with 2 games to be played. Boys soccer is 6-0-2 in first place with 2 games to be played. The girls soccer who's playing right now, they're 4-2-2 in third place with 2 games to be played. Our girls cross country is 4-1 in second place with 1 meet remaining. And boys cross country is 4-1 second place with 1 meet remaining. And we'll talk about winter sports. The EEA, which is the Medical Advisory Board, will be meeting this week regarding winter sports. And then they'll provide their recommendations next to the MIAA. So we'll see what the indoor sports will be, we'll get an update on that at some point this week, so. There you go.
Do I have a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing possible litigation and legal matters? We'll be returning to open session.
Second? Second?
So roll call vote. Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Reardon?
Yes.
Mayor Holliday?
Yes?
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Hofhauser? Yes. Mr. Manning? Yes. We will be back.
Okay.
You're back in our public session. Before we move on to the rest of the agenda, there has been an email, a public comment that I will read aloud. My name is Trish Boateng, and I live at 18 Merrill Street. I'd like to pay tribute to Mary Grabowski. We are heartbroken to learn that our daughter's beloved bus driver has passed away suddenly, and we will miss her terribly. She was such a kind person who taught our girl how to ride a bus without her parents as a little bitty 5-year-old, while simultaneously soothing my own anxiety as only an empathetic and loving fellow mom could. We saw Ms. Mary and her big smile almost every morning and afternoon for 3 years. Mary was kind, smart, funny, and so loving. She had the ability to make each child and each family that she encountered feel important and cared for. Mary was a true professional who took her job seriously, was able to keep everyone on the bus safe, while at the same time going out of her way to make her bus a positive place to be. She helped bus friends work out disagreements. She chatted with her kids and got to know them. She cared about them as little people. Every Halloween and holiday break, Mary created goodie bags for each child on the bus. Last Halloween, she even made one for my 3-year-old who doesn't even ride the bus. She also kept a box of books at the front of the bus for kids who wanted to read together while riding. Mary truly cared. Mary truly went above and beyond to show she cared, including for parents. One afternoon, I got to the bus stop late and missed the bus, but I didn't panic because I knew Mary would have my back. Sure enough, she circled back around 5 minutes later with Amelia. She was part of our village. We are very thankful that we got to start and end our day for 3 years with a big smile, a quick chat, or a wave from Mary. She touched our family as well as countless other families in Newburyport. Many families are mourning the loss of such a remarkable person. She was our bus driver who turned into our friend and a reliable, bright moment in each day. We will miss her so much. I will see that that gets put into the public comment. I'm going to turn this over to the superintendent now because we're moving on to reopening.
Yes. Tonight we have 2 presentations, Bresnahan principals, Principal Sullivan and Principal Miller. We'll talk about the reopening thus far and a lot of the successes that we've had and also some of the challenges. And then after this presentation, Principal Rossi with Assistant Principal Sokolowski will present the moment. So at this time, I'd like to call Mr. Miller and Ms. Sullivan, and then if you want to move the slide deck, it's just that little arrow
Okay.
on the right side. Thank you. Get out of your way.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello, thank you for having us. So we wanted to speak a little bit tonight about the things that we have done at the Bresnahan for the past couple of months and what school looks like since we have reopened.
We'll start with the health and safety protocols, which we've talked about with you guys prior, and now putting them into practice. Honestly, I don't want to read the entire list to each of you, but I know I wake up every day, as does every staff member and every student in the school, and fill out a symptom screener each morning. It makes you think about what you're doing every day before you show up at the building. One thing I'm also very struck by each day are the masks. Of course, you expect the staff to all have their mask on all the time, and of course they do. But it amazes me how the kindergartners and the first graders and the littlest people in our building all have their mask on all the time. It's really something to see. They wash their hands. They spent the first couple of weeks kind of learning the proper way to do it. They do it all the time. As you walk through the Bres, if you happen to be there, you'll see that there are bottles like that one with hand sanitizer. There are other hand sanitizer, hands-free stations. Superintendent Gallagher hits one of those every time he walks by when he's in our building. You see people always being clean. Social distancing, eating their lunches alone, and so forth. And if we flip to the next page, I think that, again, I'm not going to read the data, but as you can see, it's low. The number of scares we've had and cases we've had is very, very low. And I think the stuff on the previous page that we put into place at the beginning is the reason for that. The fact that everybody has one of these on all day long. the fact that people try like crazy to social distance, that we're always washing our hands. The things you've heard about for the last 9 months are the things that we do, and the proof's in the pudding. I think it really works.
Okay, so one of the things that we were asked about is what are you doing to support students and families? And, you know, COVID has made us rethink everything, and I think that we have put a lot of nice communications and supports in place as we're helping not only students but their parents through this new normal. So one of the things that we have daily is a live help desk where parents can drop in for support with our technology specialist, Catherine Page. And so this is just a little visual of what that help desk looks like. Sometimes she'll only have a few parents call in for that first hour of the morning, or sometimes like last Thursday, she was on most of the day sort of helping parents troubleshoot. And I think that that's great, that there is, you know, somebody that you can Google Meet with, you can send a chat to or send an email, and Catherine Page will be there. And she's just been absolutely amazing. We've talked a lot over the years about social emotional learning. This year it is more important than ever. We thankfully, with the support of the district, were able to buy the new Second Step curriculum, which adds another layer to already some of the curriculum that we have in place, like our PBIS initiative and our responsive classroom. And so that is another layer. And I added a little video here if you want to look at that. Mr. Miller and I worked together to sort of redesign our weekly communication to parents. We wanted to have something that was just one page that parents could get quick information. We send this out on Wednesdays, and we are trying to include a lot of pictures of students in the classroom, because so much of a pre-K to 3 building is parents coming in and volunteering and seeing and attending events, and we can't do that this year. So actually Superintendent Gallagher made our newsletter last week. And so we try to put in there everything from community resources to different events, different things. Last week Mr. Miller wrote about tips for technology. This week we're going to be promoting the Newburyport Youth Services grandparent event that's happening. And so we try to change that up and make it something that is very useful for the parents. Starting last spring, we put together a virtual Bresnahan website. Oh, 2 fingers, thank you. This website has all of the different resources from Eureka Math and the InSync resources for how students can log in, how to use Google Meet and Seesaw. It's sort of like a one-stop place that parents can go to. And we've been updating that as we move forward into hybrid and synchronous learning. Now I don't know how to do that.
You have to find the right. Try that.
Oh, great, okay.
There we go.
We just completed our open houses. That was a great undertaking to think of how are we going to make something where parents can see and meet with as many members of the staff without physically being present in the building. And so to that end, we also made an open house website that had a schedule and all the links embedded in there. And it also had lots of information just about each teacher, so that parents could kind of log on here, learn a little bit more about each of their teachers, and sort of have it in one place. And that was really, really helpful. And again, Catherine Page helped with that. Thank you. You can tell I don't have a Mac. Okay. And similar, same for, we have the same for the grades 1 to 3 open house. And our counseling department last year, we have a school adjustment counselor, 2 of them, Mrs. Weil and Mrs. Hill. And we also have a school social worker. And when we closed unexpectedly last spring and then continue into this fall, we wanted to have a way that parents could send an email or reach out, and then everyone could kind of be on board with that. And so instead of having just individual emails, we developed a counseling GRES at Newburyport, website, and that enables us to all know in the counseling department what the concerns are, and then how can we best address that and who can best access that. So those are just some of the different things that we've been working on. At the 1 to 3 level, the teachers have a weekly parent Zooms on Wednesdays, which is the half-day remote day. We are also working and collaborating with Kelleher Parks Learning Center, the counselors in NYS frequently. We're holding monthly EL parent meetings, which has helped greatly. And then in the classroom, obviously for the students, we do our daily meetings and check-ins for the social emotional curriculum.
Thanks.
Go to grades 1 to 3.
Before I do that, I will say the open house, I was really excited because we just did our open house Thursday of last week for grades 1 through 3, and all of the links worked perfectly, which was exciting in and of itself. And the next day, looking at the analytics, we saw that 361 separate individuals logged on to at least one of the sessions, which was a really solid percentage. We were very, very excited about that.
And we had over 200 at the preschool and kindergarten level, so that was just about almost every family.
Yeah, it feels like we got just about everybody, which is hard to know if you're getting them when you're looking at a, as you call it, the Hollywood Squares screen with all the little pictures. So that was something exciting. So what does hybrid look like? Well, you can kind of see we have our desks spaced 6 feet apart. It certainly doesn't look like a regular classroom when you walk in, but if you can take a few minutes, you see that the kids are engaged, the kids are active, the kids are learning just like they always do. We have synchronous learning going on every single day. It's hard to tell. I'm going to step in front here. In this computer, there's 8 or 10 kids who are logged on and in class while they're at home. And at the same time, there's 6 or 8 or 10 kids in the classroom in front of the teacher, and she's doing both. And that brings me to the job our teachers have done with hybrid learning is just absolutely above and beyond. They've been outstanding. And every day, the morning meeting, every day, the closing meeting, the beginning concept introduction during the math and the language arts lessons are synchronous just like that. And they've done an outstanding job. Yes, there's been a few technical glitches. They're getting to be fewer and fewer. It took us a little while to perfect it, but it seems to be going great. One thing you'll see are little dots all over the floor, prompts for kids to remember their social distancing, numbers to remember that they should only go into certain areas of the building, certain stairways, certain hallways, depending on their grade level. Some of our smaller groups who have to meet, perhaps with a special educator or a speech teacher or something like that, they meet with the plexiglass, much like they do in the kindergarten classrooms, in between the students. You can see another sample. It's hard to see, but there's a little boy up at the computer in the class on the bottom, another example of synchronous. He's showing his paper to his partner who happens to be at home, and they're looking at each other's papers and working together. It's really neat to see. And we have sanitation stations outside pretty much every classroom so kids can clean up on their way in. Teaching and learning certainly looks different. Had you come through the building last year, this was one of the teacher workrooms, and there'd probably be 10 or 12 teachers in there sitting close together working. We've removed the chairs, moved the furniture around, and they have masks on, but they're still able to plan collaboratively and work together as a team. They also, on Wednesdays in the afternoons, work collaboratively via Zoom. Every single grade level has meetings every Wednesday in that form. Like I said, the lesson design for hybrid is a little bit different and a whole lot more work for the teachers, because we can't expect 7-year-olds to sit in front of a computer for 6.5 hours. So they have to be able to sit there for a burst, get some information, and then in their Google Classroom, have some assignments that are appropriate for them to do at home while the kids in school are doing one with the teacher's guidance. So it requires a lot of juggling, and the teachers have done an outstanding job at that. Baseline assessments are just about finished up with dibbles and some teacher-made assessments as well to help us find some of the learning gaps that are certain to appear after 6 months of not being in school, so we could go ahead and move forward to fill those gaps.
Okay. So preschool and kindergarten looks a bit different, and I just want to thank you again for allowing us to put in place what is very much a developmentally appropriate model for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. So our preschool and kindergarten students, they come in for half sessions, an AM session or a PM session, and that was the way that we could fit them in and still do some social distancing. We are not doing remote at this time for preschool and kindergarten. We have them in 4 half days a week. On Wednesdays at the kindergarten level, the little kids are able to log on to some specialist activities such as physical education, art, music, technology, access to the Brez Hub for books. And that is because we are trying to maximize the amount of time that we have with them while they're in those 4 half sessions a week. We did go from 6.5 hours a day to 2 hours and 45 minutes a day. So we have a very heavy focus on early literacy and math, and play, certainly, which is what I wanted to include in some of these pictures. So every day you might see a class walking around the outside of school, taking a break. You can see here we have some kindergartners coming into their classroom from the bus. This first floor corridor is just for kindergarten. You can see what a nice job they're doing, socially distancing. Down at the bottom picture here is a picture of one of our preschool classrooms and what circle looks like. So we do have little markers where they are able to sit for their morning meeting but still engage. And then I have to say the one thing that I think the pandemic has really changed is the amount of ways that we are accessing outdoor classroom space. We always talk about that. We always hope to do a nature walk or outside classroom, but you can't come by the Bresnan Hand, well, maybe today it was a little cold, without seeing a class engaged in some area or a lawn or a little area in the school. And so right here we do have some kindergarten kids outside having snack, still socially distanced and with their masks off for snack. One of the things that really helped with that, I think, was working to make sure that we had good visuals for kindergarten and preschool students, because it's a very large building on a normal day. And how would they know where to go and how to find their classroom? And I think that, again, one of the things that we might hold on to after COVID is we have noticed that children who now just walk right into their classroom doors on the first floor, they just go right to, if you remember in the new building, we have all the doors around the back. We used to funnel them through the main entrances. And that, in retrospect, it sort of took the pandemic, but was sometimes very challenging for little kids, that transition and coming in. And what we're noticing is that it's very calm. They come in, we've had very few children that have had a hard time adjusting. Now, granted, the classroom is certainly smaller, but I really have noticed that it's made a large difference in just, visuals to wash your hands and things like that. I put some pictures in here of how we prepped individual materials. This was quite an undertaking at the preschool and kindergarten level, and if we had not had those 10 days at the beginning of the year, I'm not sure how we would have accomplished this, because most of what the preschoolers and kindergartners do are hands-on. It's hands-on manipulatives, Play-Doh, blocks, easels, and so you can see much of the time was spent putting those in separate containers for children. And at the kindergarten kindergarten level, they even broke it down further, and they have it sort of by lesson, as you can see in this bottom picture. I can use links to link together numbers in order, and this took a great deal of prepping. The outcome of that is that we have discovered that the children are even way more independent than we thought that they could be in previous years. They are able to really go to their individual boxes and bins and those little plastic lap tables that you see there, and manage on their own what they're supposed to be using. And I think sometimes we may have done a little bit more hand-holding with that in the past. And just to peek inside, you can see we have children with the plexiglass protectors still engaged in some art projects there. We have Miss Sue, who's pulling somebody around on a scooter. She's one of our preschool teachers. These children outside with the water table, we are like washing the toys, and sometimes they help and they do that. One of the things we also had was the horseshoe reading tables that you might see in an early childhood classroom where the teacher sits and she has a guided reading group. They did make partitions to section that whole table off so that we can still sit with about 3 kids. And here's a picture of one of our longtime instructional assistants, Janice Pollard, and the child's on the other side, and she's doing an assessment, and she can still hear and work and see what that child is doing in a safe way. One thing that is very different at the preschool and kindergarten level in working with our nurses is that we wanted children to be able to play with each other in small groups. And so you can see a picture of the pumpkin and the sunflower there, and they are engaged. They're in a little pod within their classroom for the week with 1 or 2 other students. And they do engage, and they might touch, but they are playing. And that is what we really have to be focusing on, is the interpersonal communication and play with young children. And so far, I think with the protocols we have in place, that seems to be working just fine. And here are just a few more pictures of what some outside play has looked like, and again, sort of utilizing all of the different places at school. Going forward, we are really cognizant right now with preschool and kindergarten staff to be thinking about remote learning, if remote learning needs to occur. You know, we understand that could be a possibility. We hope it's not. So often on their Wednesdays, we are working to make sure that their training and their professional development is ready to go. So they've done a lot of work with Seesaw Development and Google Classroom. They're working with Catherine Page to learn how to use Google Meets, because those grades haven't shifted to that, away from Zoom as the other grades did. We're getting the InSync Eureka Math, the online component. They're working with Dr. Kinsley. We're looking at different reports that we can use for Lexia and Zern, and also grade level consistency. We know that if we do have to go remote, that it needs to be a little bit more robust than what we had last spring, and so we're working very hard on that for the just in case scenario. And there are some of our Title I teachers who conducted some of our assessments a few weeks ago.
And finally, moving forward, as Amy said, we make sure we're prepared so that if we have to go full remote, we can, and we can do it as effectively as possible. But certainly the goal is to move forward and bring more kids back into school, provided the metrics and the superintendent and Kathy Riccio and the Department of Health and so forth tell us that it's okay to do that. We would begin by bringing students into the building on Wednesdays. Hopefully we can have students go back into the cafeteria for their lunches and move back into the specialist classroom. Right now, music, art, PE, and STEM are going to the teachers, so the children aren't moving throughout the building. We would like to move them back into their space where they have all of the things they need. But again, we just want to make sure we do it the right way and in a timely way. Preschool hours would expand, and kindergarten would hopefully be able to go back to full day. And of course, the ultimate goal is to have a full return to in-person learning and get all of the kiddos into the building at once. But again, that's all driven by the virus, frankly, and how that goes. That's our presentation.
Thank you. Yep. Can you explain, I know you sent it out, and I've forgotten the details, and people ask me, what was the high school went to the more in starting today?
Correct.
And we decided not to do it for the lower grades. Can you just
Correct.
explain what that was again? The reasoning for not to do it from K to 8 or 1 to 8?
Yes, so, almost. Yeah, so the, working with our medical advisory team, that Wednesday at this time, with the cases that were rising, but what we found with the cases that were in the school system, that buffer prevented a lot of, I want to say, more quarantining, because you had that Wednesday off. So when we had some cases with a student that was in the building, because we had that buffer day, it didn't impact more students.
Okay.
And plus with the cases rising. So we felt comfortable right now with keeping that Wednesday, you know, as we monitor the cases. But it was a good buffer for us not to impact a lot of quarantining of other students and staff. So that was the reason. And I'll also touch base on the COVID at the end.
So just to piggyback on what you just said, so do we have another like date in mind that, right, you know, after Thanksgiving, first day back, that's the next date we're not going to look at about that Wednesday, or are we not?
I think right now, we were always looking at November 2nd, but as everything is changing. So we're meeting now, the medical advisory team, more on a weekly basis. So I think at some point, yes, you know, after Thanksgiving, I don't want to put a date way out there, because if we start reducing the cases with our weekly meetings, we could, working with the medical advisory team, say, you know, 3 weeks from now on this date, we are planning. So it's kind of like a fluid, but that's our ultimate goal.
And I always said that just because November is a funny month anyways.
Correct.
With Thanksgiving, and then
Right.
the Veterans Day is on a Wednesday, so I mean, you know, November's kind of a choppy month anyways, that's why I was just wondering if
Like, yeah, when we
thinking
get
ahead to
back in
December.
consistency.
But
Yeah,
that's fine, that sounds good.
yeah.
Any additional questions?
I just have one question, just curriculum-wise. Is this the first year we're using the MyView from Savas? Okay. I was curious. I was just asking if this was the first year we're using Savas for the MyView curriculum and then my perspectives in middle school. I just noticed those coming home, and I don't remember us ever really hearing about that, so I just was asking. I know their realized platform is pretty great too, so.
And I think that was the whole reason that at least at our level we used, that there was a recommendation to move to that because of how robust the online platform was compared to what we had at our disposal last March. So that was a really, you know, definite move that we made, knowing that most of the district, not my level, was going to go hybrid.
Any additional questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good work.
Thank you. At this time, we'll call up Principal Rossi and Assistant Principal Sokolowski, talk about the Mullen, and then you're all set with.
Yep. The same presentation.
Yes, you got it right there.
Yep.
We are here to talk about the Mullen School. Thank you for having us. So as you can see just on our front slide, our students are having fun.
We need you to text a little more, please.
Okay. As you can see on our first slide, we are just trying to let students have fun when they are in school. You can see 2 of our 4th grade students with their hands out in the hallway. We do dances and pool noodles and all these things to just create the distance and try to create a fun, welcoming school environment. To echo what the Bros was saying, and also the NOC and high school presented on last week, many of our health and safety protocols are similar. We're doing the daily pre-screening with our school nurse. Every staff member as well, and every student has to answer pre-screening questions before they can enter the building. And our school nurse does a great job of following up if there's any questions about whether or not a student or staff member should be entering the building that day. We're all wearing masks, we're social distancing, we're practicing hand hygiene. Anytime a student enters or leaves the classroom, they pump the hand sanitizer. We have hand washing breaks in the bathrooms. It's just a scheduled, regular part of our day. We have students scheduled in cohorts, they travel with their cohorts, and by doing that, we are able to effectively contact trace. So any of the cases we've had so far in the building, we've been able to narrow down who might be a close contact because the students are not around a large number of people throughout their day. Going with the safety protocols, what in-person looks like, we have stickers on the floors and posters on the wall to help promote social distancing. You can see we have some students in line for lunch standing on their little sticker. The desks are spaced 6 feet apart so that they're learning at a safe distance with their masks on. And then when they eat lunch in their classrooms, they're still safe to take their masks off, eating at their desk. For classrooms where students might be receiving services or they're having STEM class or art class, we have tables with sneeze guards so that they're able to still face each other the way they would in a typical year, but we have the sneeze guard in between just to create a safe barrier. So in our Explore classes are still a place where students can experience new things, take risks, have fun, get creative. In PE, we have students spaced 14 feet apart and they each have their own equipment station, so they're not sharing equipment. And that way they're still able to access the full PE curriculum, but they're not sharing materials. They're still able to move. They're moving for the entire hour that they're in PE. It's pretty fun to go down and watch. The Explore rooms are all redesigned. You can see music. The students are playing on individual keyboards. Same with art and some of the Explore schedules that aren't featured here. They all have their own stations with their own materials that aren't shared across classrooms or grade levels. And again, students eat lunch in their classroom, and then they are going out to recess every day. In addition to many movement and mask breaks with their classes, they're playing non-touch games, so they're still able to get that social time, get some fresh air, get some movement.
The way it's designed at Mullen is every student, whether they're remote or whether they're in person, has a morning meeting. They have a check-in, they connect, they review their schedule, and they also have a closing meeting every single day, again, whether it's in their in-person learning or whether they're remote with another staff member. Our teachers are using Google Classrooms efficiently. Jamie and I are both on all of our teacher Google Classrooms, so we can get in and just check and see what everybody's doing, and they are using, they're using Google slideshows, they're using Loom videos, teachers are getting on and explaining things for students to see live. They're doing a pretty amazing job with all of the technology, and they've definitely kicked up their tech learning pretty quickly, between spring and now. We have online. This is, I think, a really important piece that's a little bit different than some of the other schools. Jamie and I worked really hard to try and figure out how we could use every single staff member that we have so that when students were home, they would have online staff support from a teacher, one of our support staff members that have worked with the curriculum for years. So people are online talking to kids, giving directions, giving instructions. They can ask questions. They're teaching in small groups, so our teachers in the classrooms can focus on the students that are in front of them. They're planning all the curriculum. They're planning with these teachers that are connected with their classrooms. It's like an online version of a co-teaching model. So there's always somebody available when a student is online and has a question immediately to be able to get on and ask a person live in person, and not necessarily the teacher who's trying to focus on the 8 to 10 kids that are in front of them. We have counseling drop-in sessions. Both our 4th grade and 5th grade counselors have drop-in sessions for both students and families. They have the hours set. It's been sent out on emails to connect with families or students during that time that might have questions, that might need some support, that might need advice or input, for kind of maneuvering through all of this. It's a challenge for everybody. So again, our co-teaching model, they're all paired with a remote teacher, so students have a live person to access. Basically, every single staff member is booked, literally 7:45 to 2:15 every single day. Jamie and I are doing a lot of filling in. We're doing lunch recess duties, we're subbing, we're covering for IEP meetings. As you guys probably know, there's a sub shortage. People don't want to be in schools right now necessarily. And we're trying our very best to not pull people away from the remote support. Sometimes we have to and we don't have an option, but Jamie and I have stepped in many cases, and we'll continue to do that so that we're making sure we can support our students in person and at home as much as possible. We also have the daily live tech support and the tech tickets with our technology facilitator, Jackie Russo, and also our tech team for the district. They've been amazing with getting answers out quickly to people. And those pictures, it's kind of funny for us, when you've worked in schools your entire life and you're used to seeing all this interaction with students, we still have all that amazing interaction going. And the teachers, when they're online and they have their headsets, they kind of look like telemarketers, but they are very engaged with the students online. Students are talking back and forth. There's small group discussions. It's pretty impressive when you walk around and you can see it happening in the moment. So this is a little bit repetitive. So yes, the MyView Literacy program was adopted this year because it had a pretty excellent online program, and so that we can continue to move the curriculum forward and not be repetitive around the curriculum. So students, when they're in class, get their MyView instruction, and they have workbooks, their own individual workbooks that they can use. And then when they're home for their 2 days or 3 days, they have the online piece that matches exactly the workbook when they're in class. We're still using our regular math program. InSync, it has developed, it's new this year. Teachers are kind of getting familiar with it. They're not that impressed with it, to be honest with you. So they're playing around with it and giving feedback to the company. They're still using Zern, which is again a program that's completely aligned with the Eureka Math. Kids are using Gmail, Classroom, Google Classroom, Google Drive. They're using Google Meets. Staff is using Loom. We have the live staff support. Just some of the pieces online again are MyView, Mystery Science, the Google Meet tools. And we've already done a first round of assessing for literacy and math with Star 360, which we've used for years now. Teachers are also assessing their turned-in assignments, and they're using the regular math module assessments that we've used all along with exit tickets, whether it's in person or online. That hasn't changed. The interesting piece that I'm finding in getting online and looking at what our teachers are putting out and also what the kids are doing is there's a kind of a higher level of creativity that's been put in place with students when they're working from home. So some great slideshows, kids creating videos, audio recordings. There's just a lot of, it's newer, it's exciting, and it's trying to really keep kids engaged by doing those pieces, because like Tim and Amy said, there's no student that can stay on a computer for six hours at home during the day, and that's too much to ask, and it's not even healthy for them. The schedules at home mimic our schedule at school. So there are movement breaks built in for at home, there's the lunch break, there's a snack break, there's Explore, all of that matches the schedule when students are in school. And then, so instructional strategies, there's been a lot of redesigning what lessons look like. And again, that real-time support from remote teachers, which we feel pretty strongly is working very well for us, for our teachers and our students. We've implemented new curriculum with the higher quality online component, and again, like Tim and Amy said, those Wednesdays have proven to be just so important for our teachers. They are meeting consistently to try and stay consistent through each grade level with the curriculum. So grade 4 meets together, grade 5 meets together. They're sharing ideas, they're sharing lessons. I always have to feel like I need to remind people that elementary is very different than middle school or high school. These teachers have to provide lessons for students in front of them and students at home for 5 different subjects. So you're not teaching one subject all day long. You are literally, our teachers are working twice as hard. They are trying their best to really keep students engaged and to meet the needs of every individual learner. And it's not easy with the, it's not easy in a hybrid model. And truthfully, Jamie and I are super grateful. I'm very impressed with our staff. They have been amazing. And, we're trying to continue to do things to keep morale up. We've had some amazing positive feedback from families that have sent notes to the teachers and notes to Jamie and I saying, I'm so impressed with what this teacher or this team is doing. And we're very appreciative of that because, again, they're working so hard and they have, this Mullen staff has very high expectations of themselves. Jamie and I would be the ones to say, okay, slow down, you got it, you're doing great, but they have high expectations of themselves and what they want to do for our students. So we are very appreciative. And that's it. Oh no, wait, we have a little video. So we just wanted to show a little blip of what it looks like when a teacher is online with students and just kind of talking to students with their headset on. And
Guys, so what are we going to highlight? Okay, so what are we going to highlight? Good. We're going to highlight all first, and then we're going around. Yes. So what about number 2? What does number 2 say?
So that's a 4th grade teacher, Aubrey Rice, and she's working with a small group of students at home. So it's just kind of an example of what it looks like when you're walking around and you're seeing the parts of the day when they are online with their students. We've definitely tweeted out some pictures of what that looks like, and I would say whenever they're online supporting students, they're also trying to really keep them engaged. They'll have the kids getting up at home and doing movement breaks and stretching and all that kind of stuff to kind of keep the momentum going.
The directions say.
Oops.
I guess a bigger question, I don't know if it's directed towards grades 4 and 5, but so you got through a round of Star 360. Has everyone now, like K-8, not K, but have they gone through that?
Yep, we started our internal assessments and throughout the district, so.
So I'm guessing last spring, we probably weren't able to do a final, right?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So is what we're going to compare it to is the last time, like the last benchmark we took?
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do, Sean, and I also think we've talked about as a staff too about, we kind of want to okay, so we did this in over a week or 2 in October. I think we're going to reassess a little bit more often this year than we normally would. We usually do Star 360 3 times a year. We want to look at it a little bit more closely to see what's the regression, but also are they picking it back up with being back in school and with that face-to-face interaction. And so we were talking about doing it again in another 6 weeks out to just try and check it again and see where we're at.
Yeah, with using the Realize platform for my view and from my perspectives, is that, I would imagine there's other opportunities to look at data now that we didn't have before. So, I mean, I'm sure that's a learning process, but, and I've heard that InSync isn't great either. But it's too bad we don't have that math piece too. But
I mean, Zern is helpful on that. The teachers can get data from Zern. They can see the lessons kids completed. They can see how successful a student was with a certain lesson on Zern. I think InSync was doing more of creating online teaching videos for the students at home, but it's just not as user-friendly right now. And I think it's because they went really quickly.
They rushed to get something out
to try and get it out, right?
Anything to go with it.
And so I think what's great is our teachers are creating their own videos.
Yeah.
I just was on a Google Classroom today in 5th grade. Allie Cussler had a mini lesson on a writing strategy.
Yeah.
So I think there are a lot of those pieces that are happening where their teachers are creating videos, sharing with their colleagues, and those are getting posted. They're going to have a whole new wealth of,
That's right. Building your
a whole new wealth of, teaching tools.
Think of all the teachers that are going to come into the districts wow, lots of resources, so it's great.
Any other questions?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I'm obsessed.
Yes. All right, there's a couple slides over here I added the COVID slides in, and I figured we might be able to touch base on that and kind of where we're at as a community with COVID. If you remember our last school committee meeting, we shared this slide with how many students and staff, and we really talked about this. But as you can see, since October 19th, that was our last in-person case. So if I go back to this previous slide, I had Ms. Riccio kind of give the current update, and if you look on the right side, there hasn't been any positive cases within the school. There have been positive cases outside of school that haven't been brought into school. And as we said in my letter to the community, we're noticing, and the state is noticing, it's household cases that are now the big spread. So with all of our safety protocols in place, with the daily check-in, with the constant reminding of families, if people are sick, stay home. If people are suspected within the family and the household having COVID and they're going to be tested, that family should quarantine and not come to school. So these current students, where you see 20, these are the students that have not been in school but are following the advice of our medical professionals and are staying home, and we're waiting for different results. The staff quarantine is that same type. So where a household member or a family member may have been exposed or going under testing, our staff, right now we have 3 that are being quarantined because of a household potential exposure. So it is ongoing, although we haven't had COVID in the schools since October 19th, but these are the things that we constantly monitor. And as you can see, really the unsung hero of this district is our nursing staff, medical professionals, because on the left side, they're dealing with all of the regular nursing and medical visits to the nursing offices, but also are facilitating a lot of those absences. So absences due to illness, you see there's been 345 days, and every time someone is sick at home and they're staying home, these families have been reaching out to our nursing staff and getting guidance regarding what to do. So I think our messaging that has gone out, once again, if you're sick, you're not feeling well, stay home. If you have questions on what to do, reach out to our medical staff, and that's been very beneficial. As you all know, Mr. Wolf will be coming up and talking about field trips, but we had our medical advisory team, we had a walkthrough with them in the high school last week, and then we also had a long meeting where we're analyzing a lot of the data. And although cases are rising around us, and cases have been rising in Newburyport, they have not been rising in the school system. And we added more students to the high school model today. And several important factors that I think have enabled us to do that. First is through the NHS administration and the teachers, a high level of confidence in the students that have been in the building following our safety protocols. I think that's been a great benefit for us. The second is the significant number of students that have adopted at the high school level to go fully remote. So we're just under 40% of the high school students right now that have chosen to go fully remote until Thanksgiving. So that's reduced the numbers of students in the building at this time. And so, yep.
Did you say 40%? 40%?
Under 40%, correct.
So like 38% of the kids are staying home, something like that?
No, 38% of the students are coming in for this hybrid model. We're around 200 students that have chose to go fully remote until Thanksgiving. So we'll go with that 50% model, but in actuality, it's about 38% right now.
Okay, got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So when you say 40%, you mean as opposed to 50%, not out of 100?
Correct.
So it's 40% for each cohort.
Correct.
80% of our kids are coming to school. 40% each
Yes.
day.
Correct.
Yes?
40% each
Okay.
day. Yeah, for those two cohorts, cohort A and cohort
Yeah.
Well, it's
B.
like a total, out of like 800 kids in high school, 200 are,
200.
about 200, yeah.
About 200 are choosing to go fully remote at this time. So that allows us in the high school and every classroom to meet all the same safety guidelines that we have with the 6-foot distancing throughout the district. And then once again, our medical advisory team, we will be meeting weekly now because we're closely monitoring all the changes in COVID and the rates in our school, city, and state. And then we consider every case. So we have a lot of those guidelines, and we go through all of the specific scenarios with those numbers to make our determination. And just for the audience that's viewing, our medical advisory team, we're very fortunate, and we have, as we all know, an epidemiologist. We have Mike Allard. We're also working with the Department of Public Health. They're all at the table, and we go through all of those scenarios. Their expertise is just this. They're dealing with COVID and the COVID virus. So that's their job, and that's what they've been doing for many years, even before this pandemic. So that's their field of study, and that's their profession. So we're very lucky to have those medical advisors working with us on all of these different numbers and these different cases, and then also taking the time out of their schedule to tour our buildings, to look at classrooms, to look at our protocols, to watch the student movement, and they provide a lot of guidance. So I think we're very fortunate to have our medical advisory team really work with us on that. And I say that because a lot of guidance, or the Boston Globe reports, or people looking at state metrics, and we appreciate a lot of the feedback, but the people we have at the table can really dig deep into what a lot of this data means and the impact on our schools. Plus our medical advisory team, the other aspect is they have children in the system, so they obviously have a veterans interest in really working with us and doing what's right for the Newburyport Public Schools. So I can't thank them enough. But so we did move for that model today. And our nurses were up here, Kathy Riccio was up here, and the students had I think a great day. They followed all the safety protocols, and as Mr. Wolf said when I checked in with them, it felt like almost a regular school day. The culture, the positive culture is coming back. So that's my update. It is at the end, but I figured I'd take time right now and to cover all of the COVID cases.
Just while you're on it, so I'll ask my question here. So I haven't done the research on it, so I apologize, but I read an article today about how Connecticut has started a kind of a pilot program for some districts with testing for all the students. Is there any talk that that's going on in Massachusetts, or are they trying that in some places?
Yes, so we have, and we're looking at, right now the state through the federal government has tests coming in to the Department of Education. From the last commissioner's update, it was about 2 million tests. So there's been some webinars that our medical people have been attending to see, number one, what's the distribution going to be? And number two, how can we utilize some of these tests? But very similar to what Mike Allard, I think, reported to us, I want to say about a month ago, when he mentioned a Yale medical study that's really working on having the general public, like home kits to test for COVID. And as Michael Allen said, when that starts to come through for school systems, that could be a game changer with a lot of protocols. So right now we know the federal government is sending tests down to the DESE, but we also know that there's a lot of work going on in the medical field for self kits on testing. So there is a lot of talk right now on that.
We're going to introduce Andy now.
Yes. Principal Wolf's been waiting patiently out there. We'll call him up to the front of the room. All right, I think next on the agenda is our field trips, international field trips. Come on in. I'm not sure if you just wanted to follow up quickly on our report on COVID and having more students back today.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it was actually, it definitely brought some better energy to the high school having more students. I know I got very excited as the students were coming in. It was great to have more students in the lunchroom. So just you could feel the energy level, and you could feel kind of the energy level in the classrooms as well. With teachers better engaging students, because that's been an area that we're trying to work on better, where we've kept our instructional program synchronous with the students who are at home alongside the students who are in the classroom. But really trying to focus on so students in the classroom get some personalized instruction as well. So that's been, and I think having more students in the classroom was definitely helpful. But also, I mean, I think what also helped to allow us to increase the students when we were meeting with the health professionals is they definitely felt more comfortable because we had an increase in the number of students opting to go remote, at least through Thanksgiving. We did not need to minimize the distance in the desks. So that was a big piece. But I think, again, with more students in the building, I can only stress how great our kids have been with following the safety protocols. If you were just watching part of the game outside and now there's a field hockey practice, kids are wearing their masks, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it's definitely shown with 4 cases in the building across the first couple of months, no spread at all in school. So the students have been fantastic, as have the staff. All right. But now I'm here for field trips because I know Aileen McConey was here back in the spring as we were trying to make decisions on what would happen with these international trips. And so we still have 2 trips that are yet to be canceled. There's the trip to Australia that's supposed to happen in the summer, and then there's a trip to Greece that's supposed to happen in April. So Aileen did do some polling of the families, and a big piece of it comes down to there's clauses in the contracts. So with the Australia trip, as long as the school committee cancels the trip, I think it's before November 10th, then everybody on that trip gets a full refund. The Greece trip, we had passed the clause back in April already. So everybody who was a part of that trip would be losing, I think it's the deposit, which is $500. But that trip needs to be canceled by March 1st. So a big piece as to why I came here today was because of the school committee clause in the Australian trip, recognizing that if the school committee does cancel the trip tonight, then everybody on that trip gets their full money back. And then there would be the question about what we want to do with the Greece trip for April.
Have we polled the Australia trip people? What are they?
Yep, they're in full support of canceling the trip and trying to get onto it the next year.
That was based on that poll that she had sent out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Greece trip was 50-50.
Yeah.
For some people willing to pull themselves out already, lose the $500 and potentially get on another trip. And then with 50% willing to wait to see what happens before March 1st.
Yeah, I move to cancel the international field trip to Australia scheduled for the summer of 2021.
Second?
Discussion. Calvin?
Just a little bit, when this came over, I went and looked it up, and somebody can correct me if they've seen otherwise, but while it's in our policy book to be the people to approve these types of trips, and I went through Mass General laws too, didn't see it, while I'm not saying we shouldn't, there's nothing in our policy book or in MGL that says we have the authority to cancel trips.
Maybe 100% of the parents.
No, I know we should be, I know they should be able to be canceled, but I don't think that's in our purview necessarily, because it's not in our policy or in Mass General laws. And we can add it if we want to, and we can certainly do this one, because 100% of the people said to do that, so that's fine, but I just want everybody to know that it's not written down, that it's our call.
If we're not going to act on the Greece trip tonight, that's a question we can ask Michelle, our attorney.
Okay, yeah, it's not written down anywhere, that's all, I want to make people aware of that.
Yeah.
I don't understand why this isn't a policy. We've been reviewing field trips for forever.
Yeah, I can't believe that we-
Standard protocol for
Yeah, I
school
think-
committees.
Yeah. Can't
We never had a pandemic.
We've always, regardless of pandemics or not, we've always voted on field trips.
Yeah, to approve them, not to cancel.
That's what he's saying. He's just saying you have that.
I'm saying it's not written down to do it
Okay.
in the
I
affirmative.
think it has to do with student safety, you know, it's,
Correct.
that's kind of under our purview.
Yeah. I just think policy can look at it, put it in there for next time.
The other thing.
No, when we go over Greece.
No, I know.
Yeah, okay.
I know.
So Bruce, you don't want to vote, you want to wait on Greece?
No, we can make a decision either way.
I motion to wait as long as we can.
All right, let's resolve one motion at a time. We've
Oh,
got
I'm sorry.
something on the floor. I wanted to add something, just simple commentary about the Australia trip. For the last probably 6 months, Australia has had a 2-week quarantine required from anybody coming in. I don't even know if they're letting people from the United States in. I tried to find that out, but I couldn't. But anybody arriving in Australia gets a 2-week, no expense paid vacation at a hotel that is guarded by their military to make sure you don't go anywhere, and you absorb the cost of the quarantine. So it's just, if it's a 2-week trip, that as far as they can get, it's the hotel.
Can I ask another question, Andy? Andy, what's the, what do we go through EF tours or?
Australia is, the Greece trip is an EF tour. Australia is a different company.
Are they like counseling us on any of that stuff, or it's just like? As far
No,
as,
it's
like,
pretty
are they-
much the decision. They have the clause that as long as they have a school committee canceling the trip, then everybody gets their, by a certain time frame, everybody gets their money back.
Okay.
So, if Greece shuts its borders down and doesn't allow the United States in, the parents still lose $500?
I believe so.
That's
If
awful.
If EF cancels the trip, if you cut, they give away vouchers, which is what had happened in the spring to a lot of those families. Even though EF wound up canceling the trip that we had to the Galapagos Islands.
So Are you finished? So the kids who didn't go to that one, they got a voucher for a future trip, that's what happened?
Correct.
Because
Or
the
they could
government
get up
shut
to,
everything
I
down.
think they lost $1,000 and they got other money back. I think they got
Yeah,
up
that
to
is kind of weird,
$4,000.
because I know I'm getting my British Airways money fully back because the government's shut down, not me.
The moral of the story, do not plan foreign international travel during the pandemic. Very true. All right, so we're voting on just Australia.
All those in favor, the motion is to cancel. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Or none opposed? Trip is canceled. What do we want to do with the Greece trip? Mr. Reardon?
You want to do it?
No.
I'd like to make a motion to wait because they have till March It's not till April, we don't know, vaccines, whatever. I mean, if they're gonna lose 500 regardless, and 50% of them said, all right, or, and I confirmed with Amy McCormick today that the other 50% can push it to another trip, then I think we should just wait and see what happens for now.
Is that the whole motion?
You don't have to write all that down, whoever's writing this down. I make a motion to wait on making a decision on the Greece trip.
Second?
Discussion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it doesn't hurt just to wait till March because they've already kind of lost their 50%, so maybe we'll hold off hope and we can still cancel it by then. But it's not going to cost them any more money if we wait, till our February meeting to make that decision.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of waiting, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. We will postpone the decision on the Greece meeting till, if Greece shuts its borders down in January, we'll probably make the decision then.
All right, well, thank you, everybody.
When do we have to come back to that vote?
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy Lysick mentioned to me that we need to, on an annual basis, recognize the existing student activity accounts, which is essentially recognizing the clubs. It was presented at Finance Committee. So I think it's formal. We can certainly have a discussion about it, but it's just a formal vote, at least according to Nancy.
Do we normally do that? I just don't remember. We do it every year?
I think we're supposed to do it every year, according to Nancy, which was news to me.
Yes, I think we do vote on that, and just so you all know, all of these student activity accounts are audited every single year and to meet all the guidelines and all the requirements. And these student activity accounts were already audited, and what we're bringing forward is the ski team, because that was part of the FinCom, correct. It's a new program, and they established a new student activity account. So Nancy's not here, she's not feeling well, but she just wanted to reiterate that that typically school committee does not necessarily have to vote, but they have to recognize. But in the past, our school committee has voted on the student activity accounts.
So this is not tied at all to like our ongoing fundraising conversation. This is just something we should be doing every year.
Correct.
Okay.
And then all the accounts, I believe, are listed in your packet.
Someone asked me, and it probably doesn't even matter, I know you did the audit, but how does something like football be at $10? They just didn't do anything since the previous season?
What are we talking about?
Football has a $10 balance.
They probably use.
My guess is they use all that money.
They use all that money.
They pay a lot of their assistant coaches that way. Any kind of money they raise, they put right back in.
These are all the student activity accounts run through the school system.
Right, yeah. That's what we talked about.
So these are the right? These are the balances right now.
And what's undistributed? It's $5,900, and is that kind of like up for grabs money? How does that work?
I'll get back to you on that one when we touch base with Nancy.
Sure.
But I would imagine that that's probably funds that were not utilized. That kind of goes to that.
But
general pot.
Accounts that got closed.
What's that?
It could be accounts that got closed because there's no longer clubs or activities. I don't know. We'd have to ask Nancy.
But I'll follow up with Nancy Lysick for that question for you guys.
So essentially, we have two votes here. The first vote is to pro forma approve the existing student activity accounts, and then there is an application for a new account, the Alpine Ski Club. That would be the second vote.
Second.
Okay, so we've got a motion recognizing the existing accounts and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Can we talk about this for a second?
Okay.
The only thing that really caught my eye was the senior class account, which has $19,400 in it, class of 2020. There is a policy that says senior class accounts shall remain open 90 days after graduation to ensure all outstanding bills. Upon completion of the 90 days, all funds not withdrawn by the officers shall be forwarded to the elected treasurer of the graduation senior class. Once a class of students graduates, the school district is no longer responsible for these monies. I assume that there isn't usually $19,000 written as a check to the class treasurer.
That's how I went to Ohio State.
So I think clearly there's, like, I don't know the history of that policy, but it seems a little weird to me that if there's any money left over, I mean, I'm gonna run for treasurer, I'm gonna tell my kids to run for treasurer just in case. You know, you pick up 50 bucks or whatever, but I think it's a kind of a strange policy in general. This year, where we were already supposed to have written, whoever that is, a $19,000 check, I really think we need to have a discussion about what that looks like.
Yeah, if I can just, make a point here. I think you're seeing that balance because of the COVID-19 issue for this class of 2020. If you look at 2019 at 0, you look at 2018 at 0, they clearly do have some money left over. What typically happens with leftover money, whether it be $20,000 or $500, it goes to the class to use that treasurer, and I always thought it was the president, but the treasurer, they use it for their first class reunion. So I would agree with you, $19,000 is a lot, but I think a lot of it's attributed to the, COVID kind of shutting their activities down last senior week. And as you see from 18 and 19, that money is fully expended. And generally, the other thing that happens is the class will oftentimes provide a gift to the school. I don't know if that happened, but that, like I say, I don't know if that happened. If again, due to COVID, the gift wasn't presented to the school. Mr. Wolf isn't here right now, he could probably address that. That would be another way the funds could go, so.
No, I was just going to see, I just think it's an unusual year. Typically, they would use most of those funds for senior week and things like that. Yes, so I do think they did a gift. I remember graduation ceremony. I thought there was a presentation of some sort of gift. But yeah, but it's a good question because it is such a significant amount of money. I mean, I know I have the bank book for my class. But yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was, because of the cancellation of the prom and all the senior activities. So I think we'll follow up with Mr. Wolf, but I don't imagine that 90-day policy is gonna, till we get some clarity around that. And then the class gift, I think at the graduation was from a community member. It wasn't the class itself. I think it was a presentation from an anonymous community member that presented.
Should we be sending this money back to the students who did contribute into this, their dues or whatever, and then they didn't get to do anything?
I think there were some refunds, like on the prom. I think this is the 4 years of collection towards their senior year.
We need answers on this. This is a lot of money to be sitting there.
It is, but I think you do want to have some reserve for their reunion.
Oh, of course.
A percentage, and
Yeah.
maybe that's
And
something that.
sometimes they set up scholarships, we've seen with other.
That's right.
Other classes too, but
Yeah, or usually when they're done, the leftover money, I had the class of 2008 provide some money to the Alumni Association for a couple scholarships that I approved to add to this past year, so.
Could we maybe find out how much money was left in the 2018, 2019 funds after? Like, was it $500? Was it $1,000?
You get zeros right here.
Well, that's because we've probably written a check.
Right.
Oh, okay,
Like,
all
we
right.
zeroed out the accounts.
Good point, good point.
So I'm wondering, and I also think that I still think the idea of writing a check to a single person just seems, I don't know. Like, is that person really, we're saying, hey, whoever you are, here's.
I don't think it's a check though, I think it's they transfer like a bank account.
However they do it.
But I mean, like
Like, we're giving it
that's
to
part of when
a,
you elect class officers though, I mean, that's part of the understanding is that they're gonna be, I mean, I'm just saying, like, that's, I went through it and I never questioned it, and like I said, now it's been transferred over to me, so now I have to make, there's not much in there, but you're right, I mean, it is an added responsibility, for sure.
I guess I'm saying if it's a couple $100s, I get it. If it's a couple $1,000s, I'm gonna question the idea of holding on to it for years. It's just,
Not a 5-year,
I don't know, it just seems,
Just table this to the next meeting, please.
yes, that's what I'm
There's
just.
too many questions.
Yeah, Sean, can we just find out like what the 2018, 2019 numbers look like?
And what does that
And then maybe think-
undistributed $5,000, almost $6,000 mean?
Is the second withdrawn and the motion withdrawn?
No, we're just gonna vote. Should we withdraw it or
I
vote?
think the
No.
mayor just asked us to
Okay.
postpone it.
Did we vote, we done, or we do it actually?
No, the mayor has a question about that money and
Oh.
some other questions. It doesn't feel,
I have a quick one too. Are you done? Okay. So, all the high school stuff, but then you go to the knock one, right? There's 2 bank accounts. Is this, am I reading this right? There's actually 2 bank accounts. Graduation 2020 grade 8 and then Model UN.
For their student activities?
It's page 9.
Yeah.
That's in the next one.
Model UN.
Right, so that says bank accounts, and then total bank accounts is $440. So what are the cash accounts? Is that there's gonna be it's in a bank still, right, or it's somewhere, what does that mean? Like for AIM and Camp Kiev and Cedardale and stuff like that, where is that money?
You know what I'll do?
$117,000 in cash accounts?
I think that's just added up. But I'll follow up with Nancy on that too.
we'll take this until the next school committee meeting.
I mean, just so you all know that this is all, I mean, fortunately, Nancy's not here to rattle off these answers for you.
Right.
But all of these accounts have been audited and double checked.
Yeah, no one,
Yeah.
I'm just curious what this number
Well,
means.
right. So what I'll do is I'll follow up with Nancy and then we can shoot everyone an email with all those answers.
Let's just do it next meeting.
Okay.
Just wait 2 weeks, what is it, you know?
All right.
And I guess I'm just assuming that some of these larger accounts are gonna go back for refunds, like you brought up, like the Washington DC trip, the Camp Kiev, those sorts of things. Right, because 6th graders paid a lot of money and then they didn't get to go to camp, so I'm assuming we're just gonna give them the money back somehow.
Yeah, next time we meet, because I know the DC one went directly from the tour company
Back to the
parents. With less whatever the
right
deposit was.
There's $10,000 there.
But yeah, right, that's what yeah. Okay.
We do have to vote on recognizing the Alpine Ski Club student activity account request.
Motion to approve the Alpine Student Activity Ski Club account.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
Oh, she was.
Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One absent. We have a starred item here, which is the NEF naming rights pricing, and I know some material was sent out in the packet, but I'm not sure what we're being asked to do. Do we have to approve these prices?
Part of your packet should have included, I guess, the policy around naming rights.
Yeah.
But this is an updated list from the NEF because there are I think families and people out there that would like to name some of these open spaces within the school system. So as part of that policy, I think we give an updated list to the school committee for your review, so we can move forward on naming those different areas as part of the
So
policy.
in effect, we're reviewing the pricing and then either approving it
Just to
or
really
suggesting changes.
move forward on the naming rights. Correct.
You say there are folks out there.
What's that?
There are folks out there waiting for,
Yes, you have some donors out there that the NEF is working with for different spaces to be named.
do I have a motion, so we can get a discussion, motion to approve the pricing schedule before us?
So moved.
Or the
Second.
second? Okay, discussion.
Can I ask? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
My question is, I know we reviewed these when we were doing the Bresnahan and the classroom naming rights, and we went through all of those. But, like, 20,000 for an elevator? You want an elevator?
Really want this.
Is that what it is? Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's, I don't know.
Does anyone know how they came up with these,
I was just gonna ask, yeah.
these
I was just saying, Bruce, could you give us some, I mean, just because I'm sure this happened a while ago, but what's the context of attaching some of these figures? Because I do feel, you know, I don't know, when you put a price tag on something like that, it just feels like anyone could come in here and throw money to name at something, but, you know, when someone might be really deserving, like a, 30, 40-year teacher that you want to, I'm just curious, what was the background? I mean, I guess it's a creative way to raise some money for getting out.
You know, the person you're talking about was probably the canner. But my sense was that it was one of the fundraising strategies that the NEF presented to the district way back when. And I would guess that, and this is just a guess, I would guess that these numbers kind of reflect what other districts do. That would be my guess. But I don't have that for sure.
So do these numbers, we think, stay consistent year after year, like 10 years ago? Were people still spending this, or have they accounted for inflation?
I don't think we've put any inflation.
Has ever been like instances where we say, oh, you didn't raise enough money, sorry, you can't name that after the 40-year teacher? You know what I mean? Really?
We had a difficult situation when we were getting rid of the Bresnahan stuff, and they wanted to name an area of the weight fitness room for,
Bresnahan?
no, this was at the high school, but we were getting
No, I
rid
mean, I was part of that, the Bob Welch, they renamed the
Right,
Bob
there
Welch.
was some
and so-
controversy about that because they didn't quite raise enough money.
So that was, I was curious, because I was
Right,
part of that, and I knew they
they-
raised some, but.
And then they made some adjustment to that, so,
They only put his first name on the room.
his initials.
Well, I guess.
That was my question, just because, I mean, that was a very deserving
Right.
person, so I
Yes.
just, and then,
Yes.
the group was a lot of, like, Old Town, Old Town Newburyport people that did a lot for the schools, and so then to like say like, oh, it's a great idea, but, give us $15,000, then we'll name it to this very deserving person, so. I like it, it's some of it, but I do feel like it's a lot to ask, and I don't know if it's, in the same, I don't know, like I said, the spirit of it, kind of.
What does this look like? Like when you name an English room or an art room after somebody, are we talking like you walk in, the wall says it, or it says it over the door? Is there like a little plaque next to the door?
It varies. If you walk through North Mullen, you'll see plaques outside the music rooms. Like, you'll see all the classrooms at the Bresnahan have the same naming outside of each of the classrooms that were adopted, kind of thing. But
So it's also just a one-time thing? Because I'm thinking like, somebody 10 years from now who's, does a lot of great work for the city and they're an artist now, that we want to dedicate an art room to them, but the art room's already been taken. in the 2020s, so like that's off limits now? Or is there, can we start stacking nameplates for people who want to dedicate, like, just recognize, not, it's more of a recognition than a dedication, do you know what I'm saying, the difference? I also have to tell you, yes, the NEF auction site was offering these dedications, and they were offering, you could buy like a bunch of books for the literacy program. And I couldn't help but think that at the same time we are acknowledging the fact that there's a portion of our population who can't afford paperback books over the summer, but we're going to ask other people for $5,000 to $20,000 to dedicate a space in the building. And I'm thinking, like, are we really just going to end up, if this played out fully, with a bunch of spaces named to the wealthiest people in the district? And with regards to equity in public schools, and that's why I was thinking more if it could be a recognition or something of that, but I mean, we're really pricing, I would imagine, most people right out of this activity.
My question would be, how many of these rooms that have been named were a result of work of groups of people and not just an individual donor naming it for their mother or something like that? You know, whether there's...
Can you just speak up a little bit? I can't...
Yeah, I mean, okay, sure. My question, the thing that I was questioning was how many of... The thing that I was questioning was that it's nice when somebody comes in and writes a $15,000 check. How many of these rooms did that happen with, and how many of these rooms was it an organization or a group that did some fundraising on its own and wanted to do it? I don't know, have the answer to that, but that's my question.
Can I make a motion, since this is a once a year thing and we don't have a, I'm gathering it's calendar year, not school year, right? That we have to say, okay, can we table this and ask Carrie O'Donnell to come in and just answer the questions instead of us kind of guessing?
That's what you'd like to do. If the motion withdrawn?
Get the answer right from them instead of going around the room.
Motions are withdrawn, seconds withdrawn. Second. All right, we're going to hold a vote on that and follow up with Kerry. The Code of Ethics, I sent around to everybody an email that I'm currently working on, combining the new mask guidelines, ethical guidelines, and what I would like to do is end up with a single document. So I'm going to provide a draft for the policy committee to work with. We've got a COVID update.
Yeah, we did that. We did that.
13 is postponed. Superintendent evaluation update. I think you guys have all gotten the links that Sean sent out for the evidence. If you have questions for additional evidence, would you direct those specifically to Sean and not through me? Just if there's things that aren't there that you want to ask him about, just go directly to him. And we had tentatively hoped that we would have this by, what, the 16th? The second meeting in November? The first?
Yeah.
I think it was before the second meeting in November.
Yeah, I had it as the 16th.
Yeah, okay. That's my update. The mask resolutions, 7 through 10. Dave, you put together some recommended additional paragraph for 3, and I sent everybody an email asking whether that could be put out to whereas form.
Maybe, I guess. I mean,
Well, it's just-
if we like what I was thinking about, I could rewrite it. I didn't have the chance to do it today, I can tell you that.
Yeah, no, I just want to get the amendment onto the form and send it in so that it can be distributed at the meeting.
It was due, just so you know, that was due on October 29th.
Oh, that's, maybe we can. maybe we're
So,
going
let me just add though, but one of the things that you'll find is that amongst all the different school committees and the members, there's generally something that is brought up that'll be very similar, I'd say. So I think it gives, Sheila an opportunity to comment or enrich the amendment that gets brought up with what our experience or what our interests are here or from the school district. So, I mean, you can still certainly try to get it in, but there was a deadline of 29th at 4 o'clock.
Okay. Resolution 7, I sent around an article that I think speaks to what this is trying to say, that on the federal level, they were distributing a lot of grant funds to private schools, religious schools, and I think this is basically saying that we shouldn't be directed to religious and private schools. So do we have a motion to accept the resolution? Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on it? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. We did the membership of the school committee member, resolution 9, I think we did, and 10 was the relative to the monitoring of attendance of students during the pandemic. We held off on that, but my notes don't tell me why. I don't remember.
No, I was just trying to listen to what you were saying. I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
Yeah, no, resolution 10, my notes saying, that my notes tell me that we held off on voting on it, but I didn't write down why we were holding off on voting it.
I think part of it was because of saying we wanted to waive all accountability requirements for this year, and I think there were some concerns on our part about doing that for our school district. And I don't know if we necessarily all agreed that we wanted to, waive all accountability requirements, and, so I think we let that one go and see what happens at the meeting in terms of how, what resolutions they come out with again.
You don't have to vote to turn it down, you just don't have to vote to approve it.
But I agree with that. Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Okay, that one dies. I will communicate this to Sheila. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
All right. Just as a follow-up on the evaluation, so I think I put enough evidence in there. I didn't want to overwhelm you with hundreds of documents, but also as you reflect back on the Friday memo, I think that kind of gives you a flavor week to week, a lot of the things, that we have done. So I'm hoping that helps and assists you with the evaluation process where you have everything in one place, and you guys can follow up and hopefully make that a little bit easier for you all. Just quickly, I'll go through our superintendent's report. Just our Steve Burkholm, met with him last week to discuss the lighting upgrade project. As you may recall, before the pandemic, the district began working on a lighting upgrade project to increase efficiency in the lighting in the high school. We did receive a Green Community Grant application that was submitted to the state. So as part of the stipulations, the work has to be done by January 31st. And working with Steve, we are planning to begin that lighting upgrade at the high school for the second shift when there's no one in the building or very few people in the building. And we'll follow all of our safety precautions with the people coming in, wearing PPEs. After the workers are done in the area, our custodians will disinfect the areas that they worked in. So that's something that we're picking up, and I think that will benefit, not only the students, but being a green community and also our electricity consumption. Commissioner Riley. Yep.
We have a challenge of trying to get the rest of the meeting done within 15 minutes, so he doesn't have to change the battery on us, so.
Oh, is that the new,
Well, it's just, it's an
Get me
option.
to hustle up?
We can make him change the battery.
All right.
Yep.
Here we go. Commissioner Riley has had a meeting with the superintendents last week. He also had one this week. The two areas we're looking at districts to remain open, looking at a more, explanation around if you are a red district and giving districts more guidance around if there's no cases in the buildings and you haven't had any spread within the schools, to give a little more specific and guidance around there. As I referred to my COVID update, our medical advisory team has been, I think, excellent, utilizing a lot of different data points. So I'm comfortable we're in a good place as we monitor the changes around us with the virus. The second piece was the MCAS testing, and he went through the process, and the first process has to start at the federal government to request, when the state requests the waiver, the federal government and Secretary DeVos would have to say yes. At this time, for any standardized request by any state, the federal government has said no, that all federal testing must, all standardized testing in every state and accountability must go on. So the commissioner is planning to get out specifics, but retesting will happen in January for districts, and then the full battery of tests will happen once again in the spring at this time. Today's meeting was really on the governor's orders and getting more specifics around that, the impact on schools. We didn't have many new information regarding the schools, but as you know, the governor came out today and will start, I think, mandating different regulations and pulling back some different aspects in our communities regarding, because of the COVID and the state going to red. They will also today talked about ventilation, and as we know for our district, we're in good shape, as you can see. We do have an air purifier here, and in many, I think we had over 100 purchased, and in a lot of the internal ventilation areas, along with the upgrades to the ventilation system that we've done before opening. And then just the other last piece from the commissioner, they're sending out some information that districts are going to have to fill out, a new data collection regarding remote learning and also regarding hybrid models, for them to have a database of all the districts and kind of where we're all at regarding different learning models out there. Our open houses, as you know, were very successful. We had a couple principals reporting that out today. I received positive feedback on the open houses at the high school and the middle school as well. I think want to credit the parents and the families for being flexible with a lot of changes in how we operate. But I think they were very successful, and as I said, doing the best that we can under these new conditions that we all face. I had a great opportunity to go out and visit schools. Past couple of weeks, I saw a lot of classrooms and teachers and students, and it's just great to see students back and seeing our teachers back and really doing what they do best, is educating students. I'm just really impressed with the teachers and effort and the commitment that they have for our students. They go above and beyond the call of duty. And it's not easy, as many of the principals were articulating today. And I just really want to thank them for all of their work. And my last piece on superintendent's report is also want to thank the Bresnahan, especially with Halloween, and how Halloween this week was a lot different for a lot of different people. Celebrating this, especially for our youngest students who really get excited about Halloween. The Bresnahan really utilized a lot of health and safety modifications, but created an atmosphere for our youngest students to wear their costumes, to have some sort of a little Halloween celebration, and it was really nice to see. And I got to visit the students, and one student said, I said, "Are you all happy about Halloween?" And they're like, "We love Halloween, but Mr. Gallagher, it's going to be a lot different this year," you know. And I was in 2nd grade, and I got a picture with SpongeBob, so that was the best costume that I saw. But anyways, the teachers went above and beyond and really wanted to make that as special as it could be for our students. So that's our superintendent's report.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Retesting in January?
Yes.
That's just for the high school, for graduation purposes, right? We don't retest 3rd through 8th graders on MCAS.
He didn't get into specifics, but I'm assuming it's going to be for the high school,
Do
correct?
we have a significant amount of, a portion of kids who retest junior and senior year?
I'm not sure. For us?
Yeah.
No, we're very low. For the district, it's, for the state.
Yeah, but
I
for the
think there's a lot.
district, I'm
No,
just wondering
we're-
if it's going to affect people's ability to come in if they have to come in to take an MCAS test, that kind of thing.
Newburyport, we're in a great place for that. That was some questions that the commission couldn't answer at this time about students that are remote, districts that are remote, how are we going to implement MCAS testing? And
Subcommittee reports.
they'll get back to us.
Met today?
What's that?
Joint Ed met today,
We did
subcommittee?
meet today, yes. We had a pretty lively discussion around the acts of 1987 that was talked about. We talked a little bit about, particularly around the strategic plan and how that's going to be put together going forward. And
Basically, first quarter financial report, transfers and athletics. In terms of the first quarter, current spending for the quarter is at 57.7%, which includes encumbrances for operation of plant, special education tuition, transportation, legal and lease, and licensing agreements. Most schools are in line with our estimates. There are a few at max for this time of year, and that's largely the Bresnahan School and the middle school, and both of those schools are on hold for the next quarter, with exception of needing any emergency purchases. We also did a transfer of $10,000 from high school math textbooks to library software to support a software subscription. We did have Athletic Director Kyle Hodgson come in and talk to us about athletics. Basically presented us the account balances for the different athletics that have been mentioned earlier in tonight's meeting, and also we went over the alpine ski application with him. Any other details to add on what Kyle presented?
Illuminating.
Yeah, this is quite a, he actually gave us a spreadsheet with all the costs broken down from transportation to officials to uniforms. Some sports are more cost effective than others, and our ability to use our vans for the smaller groups of student athletes for sports like, I think, golf. Is it golf? Anyway, that saves us from or tennis. It saves us from spending money on buses, so that's a positive.
The one thing, interesting thing I thought he said, one of the, was the risk of taking donations from groups for a specific sport that has an equal sport for girls and boys. So if you take $4,000 for boys X, the girls' side is supposed to also get the same dollar amount. Title IX stuff.
Is that fundraising or?
Yeah. Yeah. Or if I think he gave an example, another district had enough money to hire an assistant coach or something.
No, they built a set of stands.
Oh, right, built stands.
Built stands, and because, for some reason, they ended up having to tear the stands down.
Right.
Because it was not equitable. So, yeah, it was interesting. It was very informative. Policy.
We did not meet since last meeting. We're going to meet again next Tuesday. I think we're set. Right?
Yeah, right now.
What's that? No, I think we're set up to meet next Tuesday.
Superintendent's eval has already been given. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in
But
favor?
don't forget to vote.
Aye.
You haven't already.
I voted like 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Thank you.
What's your bet?
Court media.